of a shot of winning. We can beat anybody in the world, and I think we're going to win next Sunday.
Welcome to the New York Jets Atlantic Flight Podcast Draft Special. Today's episode is with Ryan and Badlands' very own Paul Kilgallen. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Gus. I am pleased to introduce Paul Kilgallen with us here today from Badlands. We're going to do a little bit of a getting to know you bit to start with here. So, firstly, thank you, Paul, and welcome. And so, how long have you been a Jets fan then?
I've been a Jets fan all my life. I was born into it. My middle name, first of all, Ryan, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. We were over in London for the Broncos game a few weeks ago. It was so great to meet and get a chance to hang with all you guys. Really appreciated it. Everyone was super welcoming. I actually lived in Cork in Ireland for a time in my life and somehow never made it over to the UK. And, even though I had been there for a good amount of time. And so it was really, really cool to get a chance to experience that and meet all you guys, and your hospitality was incredible. So thank you for that, first of all. And thank you for having me on today. Great meeting you and getting to know some new friends. I've been a Jets fan my whole life. So, my middle name is actually Joseph, and it is after Joe Namath. That's a true story. That is not made up. My father named me after his two favorite people, who were his brother and the quarterback of the Jets, who won a Super Bowl. So I was born into this. I had absolutely no choice. I was going to games pretty much from the moment I could stand on 2 feet. My family had season tickets, going all the way back to Shea Stadium in Queens, back, into the 70s, right? And I was born in 87. So I started going to games in the Meadowlands when I was a kid, and we had season tickets all the way up through about 2010. We spent a year at the new stadium and just didn't really love the experience at the new stadium, so we moved on at that point. But yeah, man, as long as I can remember, I've never known anything else.
That's epic. I mean, it's a very different thing with UK fans because we kind of choose, for the most part, who we want to back. So it's a very different sort of fandom, I guess. But
and I really loved getting to ask you guys all that question when I was over there, because it makes me curious, because a lot of people here in the US, like, they'll poke fun at Jets fans because it's been bad for 15 years, and I get that. But you have to know too that, like, when you and I are about the same age, and like when I was in my formative years, whether that be, a teenager or early 20s or whatever, the Jets were winning pretty consistently for a pretty long time. And so, I'm always curious what makes, at what period you guys jumped on and what made you a Jet fan.
So, I mean, Gus will tell his own story, but he became a fan in the 80s, and myself, I've only been a Jets fan for sort of 6 years. I only really came into the NFL about 7 years ago. So I'm relatively new. So I chose the Jets at a pretty low time around the Gase era. So, yeah.
It's a good buy low opportunity though, but my God, we need to deliver you something, Ryan.
Yeah. I've only been suffering for 6 years, so I'm not quite in the realms of being deserving yet of the success, but I feel it's coming. I've signified 2027 where I think we'll see the upturn.
Absolutely.
I just want to go back to the sort of bit you said about living in Ireland for a short time. One of my favorite moments that we spent together in London in Blue Cheese was just you and Timmy meeting each other, and you asking him where he was from. And I won't use the choice language that was used on that day, but just you guys going back and forth, and Timmy saying Ireland each time you asked him where he was from, and then having to explain that you were looking for where in Ireland he was from, because that was just one of the all-time anecdotes of that weekend, and we still laugh about it now.
Yeah, that was hysterical. I mean, I picked out the Cork right away in him, right? And so that's what I was trying to get down to. No, like, what town are you from? Because I was living there, right? So yeah, it was great hanging with you guys.
But yeah, such a good time. So look, you've been a Jets fan all your life. So I love asking this question. Who's your favorite all-time player?
Yeah, I think it's probably Wayne Corbett. And there's a lot that could go into this. I really like Chad Pennington a lot. I love Sam Darnold when he came out, but he just didn't do anything here, and it's too recent and all that. Huge Curtis Martin fan. I really appreciated how Curtis Martin kind of never really drew a ton of attention. He kind of unsexily was like, the second leading rusher in NFL history at one point, and he just did it by just showing up to work and doing what he's supposed to do every day. And he was never too flashy and never had breakaway speed or anything like that, but was just good, right? And but I think when it comes down to it, I really love Wayne Corbett because of how it all went down with that team and Keyshawn Johnson, kind of, calling him. I think the direct quote out of Keyshawn's book was, "I'm a star and he's a flashlight," right? And then he goes off to the Buccaneers, and the next year, the Jets actually beat the Buccaneers on a last-second touchdown to Corbett in the rain, which was actually thrown by Curtis Martin, funny enough. And then Curtis Martin went on to have some pretty good years here, right? They had the AFC Championship appearance in '98, but then they made it playoffs a bunch more times. Chad Pennington and the guy ended up kind of having to retire because of concussions, but this was a guy who was local to where I was from in New Jersey. He wasn't much bigger than I am now, and I'm not a big guy. And he just willed his way into making an NFL team and then put together a really, really solid career over the course of about 10 years. Never even flirted with going to another team, and Jet for life. He still kind of hangs around the organization. So I just love that guy.
Yeah, I don't think there's a Jets fan out there that doesn't love Wayne Corbett and the romance of the story and everything else that goes with that. And I had a feeling you were going to say Wayne Corbett, and I think I already know the answer to the next question, but you're someone that appreciates the sort of fashion and the vintage aspect of the Jets jerseys and the Jets merchandise over the years, and we spoke a bit about that in London. So, which is your favorite Jets jersey that you own?
Yeah, it's that I have a Kelly green. I want to say it's about a 1995 Corbett jersey that was way too big for me when I was a child, and it's probably a little bit too small for me now, honestly. But I'm still able to get it around my body, so I'll throw it on occasion. The numbers are faded; you could barely even see anything on it anymore. But it's a shade of green that they don't really wear anymore, and it was accented with black at the time, and yeah, it's a great uniform. I wish they would dust it off every once in a while. I mean, it kind of looks basically like the uniform that they're wearing now. It's just a little bit louder. It's a little closer to the green that the Eagles wear once in a while now. And so, yeah, that one will never be dethroned for me.
They used to use that black outline on the numbers as well, didn't they? And it just made those jerseys pop so well.
Yeah.
And I totally get what you're saying about the new jerseys. They're close, but they're just not quite there, are they? And I'm a great fan of the new jerseys, but
me too. I think they modernized it really well, and it looks really nice. I like it. I have no complaints about it. It's just like it's that 90s era NFL style that really every team had at that time that you can't really replicate now.
No, it was the era kind of before Nike really took over and started putting templates in place, wasn't it? So those old champion jerseys, starter jerseys, all of them were just stunning. So look, let's get into some nitty gritty about the Jets. It's great to talk about some of the yesteryear stuff, but how are you feeling right now with the dust settled on the trade deadline? Do you feel like the Jets made good business? Do you feel like they made any errors?
I really liked it. I honestly would have loved to see a little bit more. Like if you're going to bench a guy like Quincy Williams in a final year of his contract, like why not just try to find somebody to take him at that point, right? Breece Hall, I get the virtue of keeping him, and I'm okay with keeping him, but I think you might have been able to get. Like maybe could you have pressed the Chiefs to get that 3 instead of just saying, no, it's a 3 and we're walking away if it's not? I don't know. But I am extremely happy with the moves that they did make. I was surprised for sure when I saw the notifications started to roll in on my phone. I was blown away. Like it took me I had to sit down, right? It took me a few minutes to like wrap my head around it. Because I think there's been some talk over the last 2 years when things got particularly dark about, hey, why don't you just trade Sauce Gardner? Because he was a lightning rod at times for fans when we got really frustrated that some of the things that he did, like pulling up on tackles and different things like that, almost seemed to signal a lack of effort, even though I don't think that's what it was. It tended to be a lightning rod where like the craziest of fan conversations over the last 2 years were like, why don't you just trade Sauce Gardner for a couple first round picks, right? And let's start over. But it never really got beyond that like late night fan talk. So to see it happen really, really shocked me. But once the news kind of sunk in, I felt really good about it. I was kind of marinating on a take earlier this season where I was like, he's an incredibly good cover corner. And I think his entire game is predicated on, I don't want you to throw the ball at me. But I started to get worried that when the ball did actually get thrown at him, you could expose him a little bit. In other words, he's really good at matching up with a wide receiver, but he panics when the ball comes his way. And I'm not trying to denigrate his contribution to an NFL team at all. I think he's awesome. But if you can get 2 picks for a player like that maybe you think is just not a part of whatever you're trying to build here, if you're Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji, like I think you just take that money and run. And you say, good luck, and I don't wish you any ill will in Indianapolis, and we're okay with it. Now, Quinnen Williams is one that I was genuinely sad to see go, because that's a player that could have been like jersey retired, Ring of Honor, fan favorite, but he spent 8 years absolutely toiling here and got no reward for it. And he never said the wrong thing. He was always a stand-up guy. And, after he gets traded, and then we find out that he privately asked for a trade 3 times, and he was really, really unhappy here. And that, to me, even cemented even more how good of a guy he was, that even at probably the lowest point of the relationship between him and the team, he still didn't want to put the team down or anything like that, or make business ugly. He just was privately saying, hey, I'd really like to get out of here if you can make it possible for me. And so it's one of those things where I'm really sad to lose a player that I have really, really fond feelings for, but also kind of like, hey man, like go do what you got to do. Right. And if you can find some happiness somewhere else, then go for that. And you can't argue with that return either. I think we were all wondering, can we get a first round pick or a second round pick? We ended up getting both, and a player. Now, I think the player kind of stinks, but he's at least an early round NFL draft talent that just didn't work out. So maybe they think that they can rebuild that. But at the end of the day, when all was said and done, I wish they did more based upon what obviously their mindset was. But I mean, geez, we brought in 3 first round picks and a second round pick. Like, damn man, hard to do better than that at a trade deadline.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said there, and I felt very similarly with the Quinnen Williams trade, because he did, like you say, he was such a stand-up guy. He did keep quiet. He was the ultimate consummate professional. But look, we've got a chance to rebuild now, and that's the key. And it'd be great. Do you know, it'd be great if, say, 5 years down the line, and he's got a couple of good years left in him, and he comes back or something. I don't know, but that would be a dream scenario that would be great. Interestingly, what you say about Marzi Smith, I think that in the NFL he certainly has stunk it up a bit, and I think he was PFF graded as the worst DT in the league at one point. And that's not good. But there was a point in his college career where he was being talked about as a top 10 pick. He had some issues that kind of led him to falling to the Cowboys at, I think, 26. So he at some stage in his life has been a first round talent, and like you say, the coaches might believe they can get something out of him. Even if he's a situational player, I think that there's a real positive to having him on board, because he wasn't ever going to be a pass rusher. He was never going to be somebody that was going to get sacks. But if he can absolutely stuff the run, he's over 330 pounds, and he's a big guy in the middle of there. So I'm just looking for some sort of depth value from him, because he's kind of a throw-in. But if we can get anything kind of productive out of him that resulted in him being a first-round pick, then that's a home run hit for me.
I agree with you, Ryan. I tend to get a little like gun shy about being super, because I'm like very, very positive, right? I tend to be too positive, and a lot of other Jet fans will sometimes kind of be like, hey, like, you know, you're seeing the world through rose colored glasses here. But I never want to be a guy who's like, hey, this player is dead and he can't resurrect his career, right? There was something there at some point with him. And so you already got what you needed to get from the Cowboys. Why not take a lottery ticket? I'm okay with it.
Yeah, totally. And I think it was really smart from Muji that in each of the deals he seemed to do this in the run up to it, including the MC2 deal. He got players back that he felt could fill a hole, and all of them are on short-term deals, cheap deals. I mean, Marzi Smith is going to account for just over $1 million cap hit per year for the next 2 years. Adonai Mitchell is also on a very, very low cost deal. He's got 1 year left of his rookie deal, I think. And then John Mechie has also got a year.
Yeah, Mechie too. Yeah.
So these are all positions we needed to get some help on. So it's a swing, and we'll see if any of them hit. But I'm quietly excited about John Mechie, if I'm honest.
Same here. I mean, you took the wide receiver room has been so bad all year, and you somehow, there was no way to rebuild a wide receiver room within the season. Like it just was never going to happen. But all of a sudden it's 3 weeks later and you've acquired 2 receivers where you've put yourself in a position where you now have 3 guys between Arian Smith, John Mechie, and A.D. Mitchell that were super talented in college, put up crazy numbers in college, were early round talents in college that for whatever reason have not figured it out in the NFL yet. And so now you have 3 lottery tickets instead of 1. You've increased your odds, right? With these 3 really fast athletic guys who have put on tape before that they can play the game of football, right? And so you took an impossible situation in the wide receiver room and you at least gave yourself a chance. Now, if they strike out on all 3, okay, but at least you did something. At least you made a move. I think we got tired the last few years of all seeing that there was a weakness on the team and the people in charge just not doing anything about it. Like with kicker a couple years ago, where just we clearly had a problem at kicker and Joe Douglas just didn't do anything about it for the longest time. And so for the organization to at least have recognition of these weaknesses and say, yeah, I mean, it might not be the best answer to go out and get A.D. Mitchell and John Mechie, but it's something, right? We're going to try something. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I totally agree there. And I mean, we still had a similar issue with Alan Lazard this year, but very much that feeling that why are we trotting out the same people doing the same things over and over that are a problem? And absolutely, Joe Douglas just didn't seem to want to pull the trigger on a few of those. So we're going to get into a little bit about the picks that we did get back. So the feeling around the fandom and the organization is that we're going to be looking at a quarterback, and that's probably justified. So Gus wanted me to ask that if the QB that the Jets want is gone when we get to the 2026 draft, let's say we're picking outside of number 1 because we could well be, do you think that they focus on one for 2027 instead? And if they do you think they also take a day-free project like Brady Cook and try to develop them?
I hope so, is my answer. I think it was interesting if you dig into how so there was a really good article that came out in Sports Illustrated from Albert Breer about how the Sauce trade went down and how it was actually 3 or 4 weeks in the making. It wasn't the thing that just kind of developed over the course of a single day. And they had been talking for a while. And so the article ended up going into pretty good depth and detail about both trades and how they all went down. And the Quinnen Williams trade had been kind of being worked on since the beginning of the season when the Cowboys were originally trying to deal Parsons. And so there was a small bit in that article that essentially said that the Jets have already decided that 2027 is a better draft than 2026. And I think that's why you saw that really catch on in the news this week. And so it seems to me like the Jets are already having some reticence about what they see as their options in the 2026 class. And I think Dante Moore, it's starting to get loud that he's going back to school. It sounds like he's going to get paid a good amount of money to stay at Oregon. Mendoza, he keeps answering the bell, but I think there's still a lot of people that are uncomfortable with that pick. And Ty Simpson had a really up and down night last night. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to catch up on that LSU Alabama game from last night, but it wasn't great. It wasn't terrible either. And Ty Simpson has no run game to support him, and his offensive line is not playing well. But it wasn't great. And so even if the guys are there, they might not be comfortable with them. And so I hope that this administration doesn't force something that they're not comfortable with just so that they try to keep their jobs. In other words, let's say they are picking 4th or 5th and Mendoza or Simpson slide down a little bit because nobody's really comfortable with those picks. I hope you don't just say, well, we're here and we have to take them because we have no other option. We're going to get fired if we don't play well this year. So let's just do it, right? I would rather add the player to the roster that makes the most sense for you, whether that's like a Reuben Bain or, wherever you're picking, Arvell Reese, Downs, Tyson, the wide receiver, whoever it is, right? And then try to be smart and find something later on, whether it's developmental or not. And I've kind of been beating the drum for Garrett Nussmeier for a little while. Again, I don't know if you saw the Alabama LSU game last night. He got benched in the middle of it. He was bad. He's really, really bad in that game last night. But that doesn't necessarily change my mind all that much on Garrett Nussmeier, because if he came out last year, he probably would have gone in the first round and probably pretty high in the first round. And so I think whatever people saw in him last year is still in him. But LSU is a really dysfunctional team this year that fired their coach. And so something bad happened there this year. And I wonder if the brain is still intact for Garrett Nussmeier and the body is maybe broken down a little bit, can you give him some time to sit on an NFL bench and watch a game? And can you rehab him a little bit? And especially if he's sliding down into 4th, 5th round talk at this point, is that something where, hey, maybe can we grab a guy who was once considered a first round talent a little bit later on in the draft? There's another one, and I am going to be accused of being a homer for saying this, and I'm not sorry about it. UConn. Yeah. So Joe Fagnano, the reason he has not been talked about is because he's a 7th-year player. He's been in college forever. He spent 4 full years in Maine, and now he's been at UConn for 3 years, and that was COVID eligibility and all this stuff. The guy's thrown 25 touchdowns and no interceptions this year. He's crushing it. Right? They have a number 1 wide receiver, Skylar Bell, who's really good. They beat Duke last night. They shouldn't have beaten Duke last night. Duke's a better team than them. And he showed me some stuff. Yeah. Yeah. And what'd you say, Ryan? Go ahead.
They're a good team. But he's performing against a good team.
Yeah. And he made some throws on those final drives. So I was texting with a guy that I went to UConn with last night, and I was like, we're not stopping Duke anymore. Duke has figured it out on offense. Whatever we were doing on defense in the first half to stop them, Duke figured it out, and it's over. And they're going to keep scoring. So we have to keep scoring. That's the only way we win this game, is if Joe can just keep scoring on every single drive. And he did. He stepped up to the challenge and he kept scoring, and they got creative down the stretch. And, on the final drive there, Skylar Bell gets pushed out of bounds, ridden out of bounds by the defensive back, and established himself back in. And Joe makes a great throw to him in the corner of the end zone. And so I'm not trying to sit here and say Joe Fagnano should be looked at as an early round quarterback or anything, because he's still 25 years old. He's still been in college for 7 years, and there are things that you're concerned about with him. But he's 6'4". He's a big dude, and all he's doing this year is throwing touchdowns, and he's being really smart with the ball. And so maybe that's a guy you look at later in the draft. And I'm not ashamed of the homerism there. So that was a really, really long answer, and I'm sorry, to a really simple question. But yes, I am very much in favor of don't force it in round 1 if you don't believe it's there, and be smart and maybe take a risk on somebody later in the draft and go into next season with some kind of veteran bridge, whether that's somebody that's on the roster now or somebody that you go out and free. I don't want to trade for a veteran quarterback. But if you can go out and sign somebody in free agency and then have, let's call it Brady and then another guy that you take in a later round, yes, I'm okay with that. And then see what happens in 2027. And it's not to say that we're 18 months away from a 2027 draft and you can say right now that it's definitely going to be better, but I'm okay with kicking the can down the road. It's been 15 years. What's another year at this point?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's really interesting what you say about Nussmeier there, because so an interesting kind of not comp in terms of their style of play, but a couple of years ago I was really high on Jackson Dart, and then his final season before he declared for the draft, I was a little bit down on him. I didn't feel like he was as good. I felt like I probably maybe misread some of his qualities and stuff. And then he's come out and he's really looking like the part for the Giants, isn't he now? So I kind of get that vibe with Nussmeier that maybe he's just having a down year, and those talents, those traits that he has, they're still there somewhere, and he can maybe unlock it. And look, if we're grabbing him at, say, pick number 36, if we're picking fourth, and Nussmeier sat there, and you've taken a high end wide receiver, you've then gone and taken a high end edge at the back with the Colts pick. Then yeah, maybe we look and Nussmeier's there and you have a shot. But to be fair, with what you said about, is it pronounced Fagnano?
Fagnano, yeah.
Fagnano. I mean, that's another potential swing, like the Brady Cook type swing, isn't it? And worst case scenario, you find your Brock Purdy, your late round talent that can start for you, or you take another shot in round 1 of 2027.
100%. And I do. Like with Nuss, I think that he's going to be one of those guys like Dart that, like, during the season, people got really down on Dart, but then once the season ended and like cooler heads started to prevail and people remembered the greater body of work, all of a sudden he crept back into some first round talk, right? And I do think people come back down to earth on Nuss a little bit at some point. It's really bad for him right now, and everything you read is just he's sliding further and further down. But I do think he will creep forward again a little bit.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's in a very dysfunctional situation right now in LSU, and Brian Kelly was not good for him, I don't think. And I just think that the change mid-season probably hasn't helped either. So it's an interesting situation for him.
Yep.
I think.
And you watch a lot of SEC, right? You're a Gator fan?
Yeah, I didn't watch last night, and I'm kind of glad I didn't, because it was on quite late here. But yeah, I tried to catch up quite a bit of SEC stuff.
Nice.
So with the thought process that maybe the QB for us isn't going to be there in round 1 or even in 2026 potentially, who's your favorite defensive prospect that you like in the 2026 draft for a fit for the Jets and a need for the Jets?
Oh man, it's so bad to take a safety that high, but Caleb Downs is really good, man. He's really, really good. I love Reuben Bain, obviously too. It depends on, is Jermaine sticking around long term? It looks like he is. What are they going to do with his contract? Is he healthy? Is he going to be a guy who misses 4 or 5 games every year? Does Will McDonald develop into an every down player at some point? Do they start to get comfortable with him at the run? Because if they keep playing games where they're, down by 14 points in the first quarter, we're just not going to see a whole lot of Will McDonald, which is sad because they're really only trusting him on passing downs right now. So depending on how the edge situation shakes out, edge is one of those positions where it kind of feels like you can never have enough, right? So I'm kind of okay with taking an edge pretty much anytime. But if you have 2 competent people there, I don't know if you're taking one like that high. But I really love Caleb Downs. He's awesome. Peter Woods from Clemson would be another guy that, just a giant man who could sit in the middle. Arvell Reese from Ohio State is awesome. I mean, Ohio State players are like, they just seem to always be good in the pros. I'd almost never argue with taking an Ohio State player. So yeah, there's a few right at the top there where, especially with Caleb Downs, I think people would really struggle with taking a safety that high, especially considering where we took Jamal Adams and what else was on the board at that time. So you run the risk of like, hey, you take Caleb Downs with maybe Ty Simpson still on the board. And if Ty Simpson gets drafted after and plays really well, you look silly again. But if they do want to go that defensive route, I think I would live with it.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I do like Arvell Reese. I think he's something special. I've got one eye on David Bailey out of Texas Tech, and
Yep.
I feel like he's gonna land somewhere around the back end of the first or the start of the second. But I feel like he could light it up at the combine, and suddenly we're talking about him as a top 15 player. So, but yeah, there's no shortage of defensive players I like, to be honest, and we do have a good number of needs at the moment.
Yeah, he's got like 12 sacks or something this year, right? He's dominating.
Yeah, I mean, Texas Tech are really kind of playing above their station, in my opinion. And so he's got, I think, 11 and a half sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and yeah, it's just, I don't know. I mean, he's dominating what he's doing. I mean, BYU were pretty fancied last night, and Texas Tech came out and
they put it on him.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about your boy Caleb Banks from Florida? He's another giant. He's like one of the biggest people I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I really like, again, up until, I mean, I haven't seen last night's game, but Kentucky putting 38 points on you is not a good sign for the defense. But I feel like the Florida defense is really good. I mean, I like him, but I just don't know if we're seeing enough of him this year. Two who I do like is George Gums. And Tyreek Sapp. I think they're both fantastic. And they're probably going to be more day 2, day 3 guys, when it comes to draft. I don't think Gums is eligible until 2027 though. So that'll be interesting. But, look, we've got some decent guys at Florida on defense, but they can't be drafted high at the moment because we're just not performing.
Right.
And that's something else to look at for next year's QB class as well, because Lagway, who knows what he's going to be like. You can then turn your attention to some of the other guys who've come out as big names like Lagway and just not done it, like Dylan Raiola out at the Cornhuskers in Nebraska. He's another guy that hit the scene and just didn't really do anything, and then landed with Nebraska, and he's balling out this year to some extent.
Yep.
And then Julian Sayan's going to enter the QB conversation for 2027 as well, isn't he? So, as you say, if Dante Moore goes back, which is looking likely, I had a feeling either Dante or Ty were going to go back, and I think it's sensible that one or both do. And I think Lenora Sellers probably should go back for another year as well and try and function behind a working O-line and see how.
100%. Yeah, I honestly, I think Lenora Sellers should transfer, go somewhere else to somebody can help you.
There's a bit of a rumor circulating that he should probably see if Miami in need of a QB when Beck comes out. So
yep,
I'd be interested to see that. But as a Florida fan, I'd hate to see that. So I'm gonna roll us back to the current Jets situation. I'm very aware that I don't want to take up too much of your time today, but I'm curious if you think Jets have any dark horses on the roster right now that are going to break out down the stretch. Now we've got past the deadline, we're past the bye week. So is there anybody you think that is going to suddenly make a claim for a future starting spot on this roster?
Yeah, I think it's AZ Thomas. I don't think you make this deal with Sauce, regardless of what the compensation is, if you think that you're going to be out on a lifeboat at cornerback, right? And we've seen in very limited action from AZ Thomas, we've seen him be really high graded by PFF. He made a couple, like he was just coming in for a handful of plays at a time early in the season when Sauce was coming off the field for concussion protocol check or whatever the case may be. He got like 10 snaps a handful of times in earlier games this season, and all of those appearances he was graded really well. And then they got against the Bengals, and look, you can't really stop Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. You can only hope to contain them for periods of time. And Brandon Stevens and AZ Thomas did yeoman's work in kind of doing enough in that game to put the Jets in a position to win. And I think, Brandon Stevens has obviously played way better since week 4 than any of us hoped. And, at the beginning of the season, I was calling for AZ Thomas to start because I thought Brandon Stevens should be a safety, and I thought they should move him back and put him in a position that he's played before in Baltimore, and kind of take care of a weakness for the Jets back there at safety with, they had kind of the revolving door with Tony Adams and Cisco, and, put all the players in there from the last few years that you want to name. Like, they haven't been able to figure out safety since Adams and May left, and Stevens had played that position in Baltimore. So I wanted him back there, and I wanted AZ Thomas to get some reps at corner. And I think now we're going to see it, right? We're going to see AZ Thomas the rest of the way at corner. And this is a guy that, really good story at Florida State, really good kid. I was fortunate enough to be able to go to, Jets training camp one day this offseason for the green and white scrimmage. And the day that I was there happened to be a day that AZ Thomas was speaking at the podium. And just seeing him up close and personal and the thoughtfulness with which he spoke and answered questions, coupled with how he plays on the field, made me really excited for what they have there for the future. And I think at the end of the day, it was really prudent to not put him out there day one and just throw him into the deep end and start giving him reps. I think it's pretty beneficial that he got to sit for basically half a season, watch a guy like Sauce Gardner play, watch a guy like Brandon Stevens work on his game and get a little better and figure things out. And so I'm hopeful that sitting in that corner room for the first 9 weeks of the season was really good for him. And now we're going to see a player who was probably close to NFL ready when we got him, but now he's ready for the big stage. And so really excited to see what he's got the rest of the year. And as far as some of the other guys that Kiko Mauigoa, I just show me something, right? Like, hey man, you're probably going to be starting the rest of the way. Linebacker's a really weak position for the Jets at this point. What do you got there? But I think mainly it's AZ Thomas that I'm focused on. I think the offensive line, we feel pretty good about, that they're settled in. I don't know how much more we want to see from them. I've been really encouraged by Isaiah Davis. Arian Smith would be another candidate that I'd say, hey, you have an opportunity now. This is a bad team that is in full evaluation mode down the stretch. I think there are some kind of advanced metrics out there that are saying that Arian Smith is getting open a little bit more often than we all realize, and he's not being targeted as much. Now the knock on him is, can he catch the ball? So maybe that's why they're not throwing him the ball. But I'd like to see him at least get the opportunity to show something. And if he doesn't, okay, but I'd like to see him given the chance. And so I would say probably my top candidate for that is AZ Thomas. Then I'd go Arian Smith, and then I'd go Kiko.
Absolutely fair. Yeah, absolutely fair. I think Kiko looks great as a downhill runner, run stopper, and his tackling is fantastic. But the issue we've got with all of our linebackers right now is coverage, and it's been exposed a lot, isn't it? So, which does cause me concern today with Harold Fannin Jr., because I think that he could eat us alive from the intermediate. So, we'll see that.
For sure. Today could be an ugly matchup. There was a stat floating around earlier this week about Justin Fields' 3 appearances versus the Browns in his career. And one of them was when I think he was benched for the Steelers. So he only had 1 pass attempt. But essentially across 2 starts, he's been sacked 12 times. He's averaged 80 yards passing. And he's thrown a touchdown and 2 picks. And so on offense and defense, even though the Browns aren't a very good team, it could just be a very tough matchup for us.
Yeah, I think it is going to be a hard game today. I've got a weird sneaking suspicion that we might win it, but it's from nothing other than the Homer feelings. So
yeah.
So I'd like to kind of wrap this up with a sort of little fun kind of thing. But before I jump into this keep one cut one idea, just if you can just tell a few people, whoever's listening, where they can find you online and where they can listen to your stuff with Badlands.
Yeah, sure. So we're Badlands. So we run probably about 15 to 20 shows per week on a platform, that's it's on something called Patreon. So it's patreon.com/Badlands TOJ, and you'll have access to all the shows we do there. I do 2 shows a week on there. One is called Jetheads with my partner Mike Megan, and then the other is called Flight School with my partners Dan Essien and Max Toscano. Flight School is more of a film review. Jetheads is more kind of a fun, don't take ourselves too seriously back and forth, where we do a little bit of debate, because my partner Michael he's a pretty negative Jets fan and I'm a pretty positive Jets fan. And then obviously the flagship stuff on the network is Joe Caporoso and Connor Rogers, and everybody else has their own shows as well, including Will Parkinson. And it's a really good group of guys. In addition to the stuff behind the paywall, there's also Mike Megan and I, Meegs, we do a pregame show every week, 2 hours before game time. So if the game is airing at 6 p.m. UK time, it would go on YouTube live at 4 o'clock p.m. UK time. And that's a fun one too. It's just an hour-long pregame show. We kind of cut it up. We take callers. And so we generally will put out a link in like the YouTube chat. It goes live on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter from all the official Badlands accounts. And we'll put out a link to call in. So we'd love to have some of you guys call into that sometime and chat it up with us.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I am the proud owner of a Jetheads t-shirt as given to me by yourself.
Oh yeah.
In Belushi's in London. So, yeah, I actually changed into that in the middle of the bar that day, didn't I? So,
you did. Loved it.
So look, thanks for that. And, hopefully some guys check you out. The Badlands stuff is amazing. You guys do so much good content. It's not just content, it's good content. So yeah, hopefully a few people get introduced to that. I'm sure there's a lot, most of our listeners probably check it out already, but it's just good to signpost that anyway. So I got four little scenarios here. Keep one, cut one. And you can't sit on the fence with this. So Tony Adams and Dean Clark, keep one, cut one.
Keep Clark, cut Adams. That one's easy. I look, Tony Adams, I think he's got a place in the NFL, but like, I don't know. It feels to me like he almost like has some dirt on the Jets or something because they keep putting him in situations that he shouldn't be in. And I think he would be a fantastic role player on an NFL team. When he was at Illinois in college, he played every position on the defensive backfield. He played special teams. He was all over the place, and he was, pretty good at everything. And they're trying to jam him into this starting safety role, and he's just not right for it. So I think he'd be good as a specialist somewhere, but it doesn't seem like the Jets see that. So let's move on from the experiment.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Next one, hopefully a little bit more challenging. John Simpson and Elijah Vera Tucker.
Oh God. Yeah, this one's, I think earlier in the season, this one would have been easy for me to answer. Because right when AVT got hurt, I was certainly the only person at Badlands saying this. I'm sure I wasn't the only person in the fan base saying this, but when it happened, I was like, this is not a big deal. He gets hurt pretty much every year. I'm tired of it at this point, and I think we can do okay with, and my position at the time was Tippmann is a better guard than he is a center. And so we're not going to see much of a drop off at guard. Where we're going to see a drop off is at center. And I think Josh Myers is going to play better than we all think he's going to play. And that kind of turned out being right. Right. And so, yeah. But over the course of time, I think the good feelings people have had towards Simpson have faded a little bit. He'll get penalties here and there. I really like John Simpson's personality. So if we're going to factor money into this, because at this point, I don't know if there's much of a money disparity between the two players. Like, I think Simpson might be on the verge of getting overpaid a little bit, and I think AVT is probably going to need to sign a prove-it contract of sorts. So If we're evening out the money, I would say that AVT is a better guard, and I will hesitantly say AVT, but I will also say that I think I like John Simpson a little better based on the attitude he brings to the team. Like, when the quarterback gets hit late or pushed out of bounds or something like that, the first one there every single time is John Simpson. Yeah. And I really, really appreciate that in an offensive lineman. I love the guy, but if we're talking long term and we're trying to even things out, I think the smarter play might be AVT.
Awesome. Yeah. Great explanation there as well. So next one, Tyler Johnson and Josh Reynolds.
Can I cut them both? No, I actually like both of these guys. I think that they kind of like Tony Adams. They've been forced into roles here that they shouldn't have. You go back to Tyler Johnson on the Rams, and he's perfect when that's what you're asking him to do. When you're asking him to be a number one receiver, like they did last week, or, more often a number 2 receiver when Garrett Wilson is on the field. I think that's a little bit too much to ask of him, but I think that both him and Reynolds can be good at what they do. Reynolds is supposed to be a third option possession guy who can get you a big third down conversion when you need it. Right. And Tyler Johnson is supposed to be this quick slot guy who can kind of get out and get into space. And as your third or fourth option, he's really good at that, but they're both being asked to do more here than they should be. I think at this point in their careers, I would probably keep Tyler Johnson and cut Josh Reynolds.
Super. Yeah, I'm a fan of Tyler Johnson, but I agree with you. They're putting him in too many situations that aren't natural to his talents, and the way he feels coverage and manages to leverage that coverage and gain yardage, I think is great. And given his age, I'd be inclined to keep Tyler Johnson over Josh Reynolds as well. So last one, and this one I will allow a cut both. Jay Tufele and Michael Clemens.
I guess I'll keep Tefeli because he's hurt all the time and he doesn't eat up a roster spot. So we could stash him on the shelf and let him hang around. And, when he's healthy once every 6 weeks, he'll come in and make a play and we'll all be happy for him. I'm so done with Michael Clemens. It's his ability, and it seems to be almost a talent at this point, to show up in a negative way in the biggest of moments, is incredible. It seems like every time there's a game on the line situation on defense, and you need a stop and you don't get the stop, it feels like Michael Clemens is at the center of it. He just cannot contain. He's too slow. Now I will say he played pretty well in the Denver game. And I think he played okay in the Cincy game as well. So he's had a couple good weeks. But I don't want to get I don't want to fall for that fool's gold. There's enough tape on him that is just, it's horrific, man. I'm just so tired of it. It's such a symbol of the last few years of everything that's been wrong with the team that, even just for the vibes alone, I feel like they need to exorcise the demon and get rid of him.
Yeah, totally. I feel like it might not be a Namath curse. It could be a Clemens curse. I feel that totally. I appreciate all your time today, Paul. And I've definitely overran on where I hoped.
No worries at all.
So a huge thank you for coming on today, and I'm sure your little boy is going to keep you busy for the rest of the day till game time. And just from all of us at the New York Jets Atlantic Flight Podcast, just huge thank you for coming on today, but also just being an all-round great guy in London when we got to meet you, and the rest of the guys at Badlands were just so nice. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate the invite. I was truly I was touched and honored by it. So thank you. And I'm happy to come on anytime, and hopefully you guys can come on ours at some point as well. And we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, we'd definitely be keen to do that, and we've got a few more draft podcasts lined up and stuff. So we're gonna have to have a little bit of a closer look at the Yukon guys. We'll definitely have to get you involved.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ryan.
So I'm going to wrap this here. Thank you so much, Paul, and to all the listeners out there, I hope you've enjoyed this. It's a bit of a special, and as always, go Jets.
Y'all know what to say. On 3. 1, 2, 3.